Men are ungrateful, false, cowardly, and covetous. The exact moment you cease to be of immediate utility to them, they will abandon you. You are watching them walk away. You are feeling the exact temperature of the room drop. The alliances you built, the favors you distributed, the loyalty you thought you had secured. Gone. Evaporated the second the tide turned against your interests. You expected solidarity. You expected them to remember what you did for them when they were starving. That was your first mistake. You projected your own moral code onto a world that operates strictly on the cold axis of power and self-interest. You believed in the permanence of human attachment. Machiavelli warned you against this exact delusion. He stated clearly that love is held by a chain of obligation, which, because we are inherently selfish, is broken whenever it serves our purpose. But fear is maintained by a dread of punishment that never fails. You chose to be loved. Now you are standing entirely alone. Do not look away from this emptiness. Do not scramble to fill the void with new, equally fragile alliances. The silence in the room right now is not a defeat. It is the raw material of absolute sovereignty. You are finally free from the most dangerous illusion of all, the belief that your survival depends on the goodwill of others. By the time we are finished here, you will understand exactly why being stripped of your allies is the ultimate tactical advantage. You will learn how to turn the desolate ground you are standing on into an impenetrable fortress. You will stop waiting for a rescue party that is never coming. The first realization you must force upon yourself is that your isolation is not a punishment. It is a necessary clarification. When you are surrounded by sycophants, dependents, and fair-weather friends, your perception of reality is inevitably distorted. You mistake their presence for your own strength. You start to believe that the scaffolding holding you up is actually part of your foundation. It is not. The crowd only ever acts as a buffer between you and the brutal mechanics of the real world. By leaving you, they have done you an immense favor. They have removed the distortion. You can now see the board clearly. You can see who was draining your resources. You can see who was quietly anchoring you to mediocrity. People do not abandon a sinking ship because they hate the captain. They abandon it because they fear drowning. Your job is not to fix the ship to win them back. Your job is to learn how to breathe underwater. The pain you are feeling right now is merely the sensation of weakness leaving your psychological architecture. You built your house on the shifting sands of human affection. You constructed your identity around being needed, being recognized, being part of a collective. That collective has now exposed its true nature. It is transactional. It always was. You were just too soft to admit it. The Machiavellian mind does not mourn the loss of transactional relationships. It calculates the saved expenditure. You no longer have to perform for them. You no longer have to compromise your vision to maintain their comfort. The energy you spent keeping them satisfied can now be entirely redirected into aggressive, unilateral expansion. You are no longer managing a coalition. You are building an empire of one. Comment: I will no longer negotiate for my own survival. This brings us to the fallacy of borrowed armor. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the danger of auxiliary troops. These are forces borrowed from an ally to defend your territory. He considered them the most dangerous kind of military asset. If they lose, you are destroyed. If they win, you are their prisoner. When you rely on others to validate your worth, secure your position, or fight your battles, you are using auxiliary troops. You are wearing armor that does not fit your body. It is heavy, it restricts your movement, and ultimately, it belongs to someone else. The moment they decide they want it back, you are left naked on the battlefield. The people who abandoned you were your auxiliary troops. You thought they were an extension of your own power. They were not. They were a liability, waiting for the worst possible moment to detonate. Look at your current situation. You feel vulnerable because the armor has been stripped away. But vulnerability is merely the prerequisite for agility. You are lighter now. You are not beholden to the slow consensus of a committee. When a prince relies on his own arms, he cannot be held hostage by the shifting loyalties of mercenaries. You must cultivate a ruthless self-sufficiency. This means mastering the skills you previously outsourced. It means developing an ironclad internal validation system that does not require external applause to function. If you need a crowd cheering to feel powerful, you are a slave to the crowd. True power is silent, self-generating, and entirely indifferent to the opinions of the spectators. The spectator pays to watch. The prince owns the arena. You must audit everything you currently rely on. What emotional needs are you expecting others to fulfill? What professional advantages are you hoping someone else will hand to you? Cut the cords. Every cord is a leash. If you cannot produce it yourself, you do not own it. If you do not own it, it can be used to control you. The Machiavellian response to abandonment is not to seek new allies immediately. It is to become entirely self-contained. You must become the bank, the factory, and the army. You must reach a point where anyone else's presence in your life is a luxury, not a necessity. When you operate from a position of absolute necessity, you reek of desperation. The world punishes desperation. When you operate from a position of sovereign autonomy, you radiate a cold, gravitational pull. People are drawn to those who do not need them. The process of building your own arms is brutal. It requires you to face your own incompetence without flinching. You will fail. You will bleed. You will realize how much you are compensating for your own deficiencies by hiding behind the talents of others. Do not hide from this humiliation. Use it. Let it burn away the remaining fragments of your ego. The ego is concerned with how things look. The prince is concerned with how things function. Your new foundation must be built on the bedrock of objective competence. You must become undeniable. Not because you are well-liked, but because you are functionally superior. When you are the one producing the results, the crowd will eventually return. Not because they love you, but because they need the heat of your fire to stay warm. But this time, you will not mistake their need for loyalty. You will know exactly what they are. Comment, I refuse to wear borrowed armor. The architecture of absolute autonomy relies on a concept Machiavelli called virtue. This is not virtue in the moral, ethical sense. It is not about being good, kind, or righteous. Virtù is sheer, uncompromising drive. It is the force of will, the tactical brilliance, and the relentless energy required to impose your design upon a chaotic world. It is the refusal to be a victim of circumstance. When everyone leaves you, your virtù is the only thing standing between you and total erasure. The weak man looks at his empty surroundings and sees a reason to surrender. The man of virtue looks at the exact same empty room and sees a blank canvas. He understands that the absence of others is the absence of interference. To cultivate this force, you must shift your relationship with reality. You can no longer afford the luxury of wishful thinking. You cannot hope for a better hand. You must play the cards you are holding with lethal precision. This requires radical acceptance. Accept that you are alone. Accept that the cavalry is not coming over the hill. Accept that if you fall, you will hit the concrete and no one will catch you. Once you truly internalize this, a terrifying calm will wash over you. The anxiety of waiting for salvation vanishes. You realize that you are the sole author of your rescue. This is the moment you transition from a dependent organism to an apex predator. The predator does not complain about the cold. It adapts its hunting strategy to the winter. You must systematically eliminate every trace of passive language from your internal dialogue. You do not say, "This happened to me." You say, "This is the current state of the board, and here is my next move." You strip the emotion out of the equation. Emotion makes you predictable. It makes you easy to manipulate. When your enemies see that your isolation has made you sad, angry, or desperate, they know they have won. When they see that your isolation has simply made you colder, sharper, and more efficient, they will begin to fear you. You must become a machine of calculated action. Every hour of your day must be weaponized. The time you previously wasted managing the fragile egos of your now absent friends must be poured into your own elevation. Read aggressively. Train relentlessly. Build the systems that will secure your future. You are constructing a fortress. A fortress is not built overnight, and it is not built with inferior materials. It is built stone by heavy stone, in the silence, out of sight of those who wish to see it crumble. Your daily routine must become an ironclad ritual. The discipline you impose on yourself now will dictate the extent of your power later. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the physical manifestation of virtue. It is the proof that you command yourself. And if you can command yourself, you are capable of commanding the world. The people who left you lack this command. They are drifting on the currents of external validation. You are building an engine that will push against the current. Understand that virtue is inherently confrontational. It offends those who are stagnant. When you begin to move with absolute self-reliance, you will trigger the insecurities of everyone watching. They will call you cold. They will call you arrogant. They will try to shame you back into the collective herd. You must remain entirely indifferent to their judgments. A lion does not concern himself with the opinions of sheep, and a prince does not concern himself with the moralizing of the powerless. You are operating on a higher frequency of existence. The rules that govern their lives no longer apply to you. You are writing your own laws now. To write these laws effectively, you must engage in the systematic eradication of hope and sentimentality. Hope is a poison. It is the belief that things will somehow magically improve without your direct, violent intervention. Hoping that they will realize their mistake and come back to you is an act of psychological self-mutilation. You are keeping the wound open. You are giving power to ghosts. Machiavelli understood that nostalgia for the past is a fatal vulnerability. You cannot fight the battles of today if your mind is anchored in the alliances of yesterday. You must burn the ships. You must sever the emotional ties so cleanly and completely that looking back is not even a physical possibility. This means you must stop monitoring their lives. You must stop checking to see if they are doing worse without you. That is a manifestation of ego, and ego is inefficient. It does not matter what they are doing. They are irrelevant data points in a system you no longer inhabit. By giving them your attention, you are continuing to pay them a tax you do not owe. Close the accounts. Shut off the valves. Redirect every ounce of that cognitive energy inward. You must become a black hole to your past. Nothing escapes. Nothing returns. When you sever sentimental ties, you free up massive amounts of processing power. You will find that your focus becomes laser sharp. You will see opportunities that were previously obscured by the haze of emotional entanglement. This severing is not merely external, it is internal. You must kill the part of yourself that craves their validation. You must dissect your own psychology and remove the tumor of dependency. Ask yourself, why did you need them in the first place? What weakness in your own armor were you trying to cover up with their presence? Identify it, isolate it, fix it. This is the excruciating work of self-mastery. It is not pleasant. It requires you to look at your own flaws with the cold, sterile gaze of a surgeon. But once the weakness is excised, you become impenetrable. You will never again allow another human being to hold leverage over your emotional stability. Sentimentality will try to creep back in during moments of fatigue. You will remember the good times. You will remember the camaraderie. When this happens, you must forcefully counter it with the unvarnished truth of their betrayal. Remind yourself of the exact moment they turned their backs. Keep the memory of that coldness alive, not to wallow in it, but to use it as a stimulant. Let it shock your system back into a state of high alert. You are at war with your own conditioning. Society conditions you to forgive, to forget, to seek reconciliation. Machiavelli teaches you to observe, to adapt, and to conquer. Reconciliation is often just a delayed repetition of the original betrayal. Do not invite the snake back into the garden just because you are lonely. Embrace the austerity of your new reality. There is a profound elegance in a life stripped of unnecessary emotional attachments. You move faster. You strike harder. You sleep with the peace of a person who owes nothing to anyone. The eradication of sentimentality does not make you a monster. It makes you highly functional. It makes you a pragmatic operator in a world that routinely crushes the naive. You are constructing a psychological barrier that no amount of false charm can penetrate. You are teaching yourself to evaluate people based entirely on their actions and utility, rather than their words and promises. Words are cheap. Action is the only currency the prince respects. Comment: I burn the ships, I do not look back. With the ships burned and the past eradicated, you must establish the mechanics of fear and respect. When the crowd leaves, they often do so with a sense of superiority. They believe they have diminished you. They expect you to wither. Your immediate objective is not to win them back through love or persuasion. Your objective is to re-establish your baseline presence as an undeniable force. Machiavelli's central thesis on leadership is that it is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Love is volatile. It depends entirely on the other person's emotional state. Fear is stable. It depends on their understanding of your capacity for retribution and your uncompromising boundaries. You do not cultivate fear by throwing tantrums or making empty threats. That is the behavior of the weak and the desperate. You cultivate fear through absolute, chilling competence and unpredictable silence. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying your actions. When you speak in directives, not requests. When someone crosses a boundary, you do not argue. You enforce a consequence, immediately, and without a trace of emotion. People fear what they cannot predict, and they respect what they cannot break. By becoming a fortress of emotional control, you become entirely unpredictable to those who are accustomed to manipulating you through your feelings. They will test you. The people who abandoned you, or the new people you encounter, will attempt to gauge your current state. They will poke at the perimeter to see if the defenses are still active. You must meet these tests with cold, immovable force. If a former ally reaches out with a casual inquiry, do not respond with eager familiarity. Respond with sterile professionalism, or do not respond at all. Your silence is a weapon. It forces them to project their own anxieties into the void. It communicates that their access to you has been permanently revoked. Access is a privilege, not a right. When you restrict access, you immediately increase your perceived value. You are rewriting the social contract. In the past, you were accessible, accommodating, and eager to please. That version of you is dead. The new version operates strictly on a transactional basis of mutual respect. If the respect is not present, the transaction is cancelled. Period. No second chances. No lengthy explanations. This level of rigidity will shock people initially. They will accuse you of changing, agree with them, tell them the old version was inefficient and has been decommissioned. You owe no one an apology for upgrading your psychological software to defend against their viruses. Establishing fear and respect requires you to be completely willing to walk away from any negotiation, any relationship, and any opportunity that does not serve your ultimate objective. The man who is willing to walk away holds all the power. Because you have already survived the mass exodus of your social circle, you have already experienced the worst-case scenario. You know that you can survive alone. This knowledge makes you incredibly dangerous. You are no longer constrained by the fear of abandonment. You have weaponized the abandonment. You are now holding the detonator. You dictate the terms of engagement. If they do not like the terms, they can leave. You will simply return to the productive silence of your fortress. To operate effectively from this fortress, you must master the duality of the fox and the lion. Machiavelli explicitly states that a prince must know how to use the nature of both beasts. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. You must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. In your current state of isolation, this duality is your primary survival mechanism. You are surrounded by a landscape that has proven to be hostile. You cannot simply smash your way through every obstacle like a lion. You lack the manpower and the resources, but you also cannot entirely rely on deception like a fox. Eventually, you must assert physical and operational dominance. Being the fox means operating with supreme cunning. You must become a master of observation. Because you are alone, you are no longer the center of attention. Use this invisibility. Watch how the people who left you operate when they think you are no longer a threat. Analyze their weaknesses. Map their networks. Understand their motivations. The fox does not announce his presence. He moves through the underbrush, gathering intelligence, testing the perimeter fences for weak spots. You must conceal your true intentions. Let them think you are defeated. Let them think you are inactive. Their underestimation of you is your greatest tactical advantage. It lowers their guard. When you do engage with the world, do so with calculated deception. You do not need to reveal your grand strategy to anyone. You feed them only the information that serves your immediate purpose. You camouflage your virtue under a veneer of compliance or indifference. This requires immense discipline. The natural impulse is to boast, to show them that you are doing fine, to flex your muscles prematurely. Resist this urge. The fox waits until the exact right moment to strike, and when he does, he ensures the trap is already sprung before the enemy even realizes they are in danger. But cunning is not enough. When the moment of confrontation arrives, when the trap is sprung, you must instantly transition into the lion. You must strike with overwhelming, terrifying force. This is the application of your newly cultivated competence and absolute resolve. When you move to take back ground, or when you assert a new boundary, there can be no hesitation. You must roar. The sudden shift from the elusive fox to the dominant lion creates a psychological shockwave. It paralyzes your adversaries. They thought they were dealing with a defeated outcast. Suddenly, they are facing an apex predator who has spent the last year sharpening its claws in the dark. This duality requires you to be entirely fluid. You cannot be locked into a single identity. You are whatever the situation requires you to be. If the obstacle is a complex network of rumors and office politics, be the fox. Dissect the network, plant misinformation, turn their alliances against them. If the obstacle is a direct challenge to your authority or a blatant act of disrespect, be the lion. Crush the challenge publicly and definitively so that no one else dares to repeat the offense. You are the architect of the environment. You control the temperature. You determine when it is time to whisper and when it is time to draw blood. Comment, I am the fox in the shadows and the lion in the light. To seamlessly execute the transition between the fox and the lion, you must subject yourself to the cruelty of internal reinvention. The person who was abandoned is not the person who will conquer. The old version of you was flawed. It was naive. It possessed vulnerabilities that your enemies exploited. If you try to rebuild your empire using the same software that crashed the system, you will fail again. You must become your own harshest critic. You must put your past self on trial, convict it of incompetence, and execute it without mercy. Reinvention is not a gentle process of self-discovery. It is a violent act of self-destruction followed by a calculated reconstruction. Identify the specific traits that led to your downfall. Were you too trusting? Were you lazy? Did you lack financial independence? Did you talk too much and listen too little? Write these flaws down. Stare at them. Own them. You cannot correct a weakness you refuse to acknowledge. The Machiavellian mind takes extreme ownership of every failure. Blaming the people who left you is a useless exercise. Yes, they were treacherous, but you were the one who gave them the keys to the gate. You were the one who fell asleep on watch. Accept the blame. Let the sting of that responsibility force you into aggressive action. The reconstruction phase requires you to engineer a new persona based strictly on utility. You must acquire the traits necessary for survival in your current environment. If you were overly emotional, you must train yourself in stoic detachment. If you were disorganized, you must become ruthlessly systematic. You are building a war machine. Every gear and lever must serve a purpose. Strip away any hobbies, habits, or relationships that do not contribute to your forward momentum. You do not have the luxury of leisure right now. You are in a state of emergency. This internal cruelty extends to how you manage your own physical and mental energy. You must push yourself beyond your previous limits. When your mind tells you it is tired, you must override the signal. You are forging resilience in the fires of isolation. The isolation is the forge. The heavy lifting, the late nights, the solitary execution of your strategy. This is the hammer striking the steel. With every strike, you become denser, harder, sharper. You will notice that your tolerance for pain increases. Your tolerance for bullshit decreases. You are shedding the soft, pliable skin of a dependent civilian and growing the thick, scarred hide of a veteran operative. Do not expect anyone to understand this process. Do not try to explain it to them. When they see the new version of you, they will be uncomfortable. They will say you have become cold, distant, or unapproachable. This is proof that the reinvention is working. You are no longer broadcasting the signals of a prey animal. You are broadcasting the signals of a sovereign entity. Their discomfort is not your problem. It is a byproduct of your elevation. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them whisper. Their whispers are the background noise of your ascent. You are entirely focused on the mechanics of your own power. As you elevate, you must prepare to face what Machiavelli called fortuna. Fortuna is the unpredictable, often destructive force of fate, luck, and circumstance. He compared fortuna to a raging river. When it is angry, it floods the plains, tears down trees, and destroys everything in its path. Men flee before it, yielding to its fury, unable to direct it. But, Machiavelli noted, this does not mean that when the weather becomes calm, men cannot make provision. They can build defenses, dams, and dikes, so that when the river rises again, it flows through a canal, and its force is neither so unchecked nor so damaging. Your recent abandonment was a flood. It wiped out your structures. You were caught unprepared. You relied on the false permanence of a sunny day. Now that the floodwaters are receding and you are standing in the wreckage, your absolute priority is to build the dikes. You must master fortuna by anticipating disaster. A prince who relies entirely on fortune is ruined when fortune changes. You must assume that the worst-case scenario is not just possible, but inevitable. You must build redundancies into every aspect of your life. Financial autonomy is the strongest dam you can build. If you rely on a single source of income, a single client, or a single patron, you are at the mercy of the river. You must diversify your power base. Build multiple streams of revenue. Acquire skills that are entirely independent of your current industry. Make yourself indispensable in multiple arenas. When one bridge washes away, you must already have 3 others operational. This is the essence of strategic foresight. You are playing chess 5 moves ahead, while your former allies are playing checkers in the mud. You must also build psychological dams. Fortuna will test your new resolve. You will face setbacks. Investments will fail. New ventures will collapse. The isolation will occasionally feel suffocating. When the river rises again, you cannot allow it to flood your internal citadel. You must maintain the cold, analytical mindset of the architect. Observe the rising water. Note where the defenses are holding and where they are leaking, and make the necessary repairs without panic. Panic is a luxury you cannot afford. Panic implies a loss of control. You never lose control. You simply adjust the parameters of the operation. Machiavelli famously stated that fortuna is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. He observed that she allows herself to be mastered by the adventurous and the bold, rather than by those who proceed coldly. This means you cannot simply play defense. Building dams is necessary, but true mastery of fate requires audacious, calculated risk. You must strike out into new territories. You must launch offensives when your enemies expect you to retreat. You must force the universe to react to your moves, rather than constantly reacting to its chaotic whims. You bend probability to your will through sheer volume of aggressive action. This brings us to the strategy of the void. You are alone. The board is empty. Instead of seeing this as a deficit, you must weaponize the isolation. The void is the ultimate tactical concealment. When you are surrounded by a social circle, your moves are telegraphed. People know your schedule, your habits, your resources, and your intentions. You are a known quantity. Known quantities are easy to counter. But when you are in the void, you become invisible. No one knows what you are building. No one knows what you are studying. No one knows how much capital you have accumulated, or what alliances you are secretly forging in the dark. You must guard this invisibility fiercely. Do not broadcast your progress. Do not post your victories on social media to spite the people who left you. Spite is a powerful fuel, but it is a terrible navigator. If you show them your hand, you give them the opportunity to prepare. Move in absolute silence. Let them believe you are stagnating. Let them believe you have given up. Their ignorance is the shadow in which you will construct your empire. The element of surprise is the most devastating weapon in a strategist's arsenal. You are preparing to drop a bomb. You do not warn the target. Operating in the void requires extreme self-discipline because there is no immediate external reward. There is no applause. There are no pats on the back. You are operating purely on internal conviction. You must learn to derive intense satisfaction from the secret knowledge of your own growing power. Every book you read, every system you build, every physical limitation you break, is a brick in a wall they cannot see. You are quietly tipping the scales of power in your favor. When you finally do emerge from the void, you will not emerge as the person who was left behind. You will emerge as an entirely new entity, a highly concentrated force of nature. The shock value alone will shatter their defenses. They will scramble to understand how you achieved this transformation. They will try to trace your steps, but they will find nothing because you built it all in the dark. You have effectively rewritten the rules of the game while they were still playing the old version. The void also allows you to be highly selective about who you let into your new perimeter. You are no longer operating from a deficit. You do not need numbers. You need quality. You evaluate potential allies with the cold scrutiny of a diamond merchant. What is their utility? What is their track record? Are they driven by virtue or by sentimentality? If they do not meet your exacting standards, they remain outside the wall. You are the gatekeeper now. You dictate the terms of entry. The void has taught you that your own company is vastly superior to the company of fools. Finally, we arrive at the sovereign return. You do not return to the arena as a victim seeking an apology. You do not return as a former friend seeking reconciliation. You return as the sovereign. You return as the one they must answer to. The ultimate revenge against those who abandoned you is not to destroy them directly. It is to render them entirely irrelevant. You ascend to a position of such undeniable power and influence that their betrayal becomes a minor, humorous footnote in your history. You look down from the summit, and you can barely see them. When you cross paths with them again, and you will not display anger. Anger implies that they still have the power to affect your emotional state. You will display nothing but absolute, terrifying indifference. You will treat them with the polite, sterile detachment you would offer a stranger asking for directions. This indifference will crush them far more effectively than any insult. It confirms that they no longer exist in your psychological hierarchy. They are ghosts. You are the reality. Your success is no longer theoretical. It is operational. You own the infrastructure. You control the capital. You dictate the terms. The people who left you will suddenly attempt to re-enter your orbit. They will claim they always believed in you. They will try to rewrite history to position themselves as your early supporters. You will see through this transparent manipulation instantly. You will utilize them if they offer immediate tactical value, but you will never, ever trust them. You will keep them on a short leash, fully aware that they will bite the moment they are hungry again. But this time, you are holding the whip. You have mastered the Machiavellian art of turning abandonment into an empire. You have stripped away the illusions of borrowed armor and built your own fortress. You have eradicated the poison of hope and embraced the cold mechanics of fear and respect. You have moved silently in the void, anticipating the floods of fortuna, and you have emerged as an apex operator. You are no longer dependent on the crowd. You are the gravity that the crowd revolves around. This is the path of the prince. It is not a path for the weak, the sentimental, or the dependent. It is a path of isolation, brutal self-examination, and relentless forward momentum. If you are ready to stop complaining about who left you and start building the empire they will one day beg to enter, the time for hesitation is over. The board is yours. Make your move. If this strategy has fundamentally altered your perception of power, subscribe to the channel. We do not deal in motivation here. We deal in tactical reality. Join the ranks of those who dominate the board and never let them see you bleed.